the opportunity is there. The opportunity is there for you, and how you feel about life, it's gonna show. It's gonna show. And so take pride in yourself. Stay focused. Stay consistent. Follow your dreams.
This is a journey.
Let me take you on a journey.
There will still be
The journey. The journey.
New sheriff in town, and his name is
The journey.
Journey.
This thing is bigger than Nino Brown. This is
The journey. The journey.
What is it that moved you?
The journey. The journey.
Welcome back to another episode of The Journey. I'm your host, Larry Robinson, and today we have an amazing Memphis icon. But before we get to him, let's talk about our quote. Our quote comes from the late, great Academy Award winner, Chadwick Boseman, and it goes a little something like this. In times of crisis, the wise build bridges, the foolish build barriers. For me, I consider myself a wise man. So during times of crisis, I'm gonna build friends, I'm gonna build alliances. I'm not gonna push people away. So you do it how you do it, but I think in times of crisis, I wanna have as many friends and as many allies as possible. But let's get to our guest. Today's Memphis icon was born and raised right here in the land of Memphis. Straight out of Kirby High School, was a police officer, but decided to pivot or maybe cross over a little bit to the fire department. He's now a firefighter, and guess what? He's ascended almost to the top. He's Battalion Chief Major McNeil, and he's also a great father. He's a tremendous leader, great grandfather, and most of all, he's a phenomenal husband. So without further ado, brother, Major McNeil, what's happening, man?
Man,
I know
great.
that was a long intro.
That was great.
Was that?
I loved it.
Which part did you like the most?
I like the quote that you were saying about building barriers.
Yeah.
Man, and that we're living in a time right now where a lot of barriers are being placed around us all.
Right.
And so the ability and the mindset, that you build your friends, you build relationships.
Yeah.
That's the direction that this country needs to go in. I appreciated that.
Absolutely. Thank you. So listen, let's talk about the early years.
Okay.
Where were you raised, and who was in the household with you?
Wow. Well, I was raised in a single family.
Okay.
My mother,
really?
it was just my mother.
Okay.
She was our bread and butter.
Okay.
But we did have an awesome support system.
Okay.
We did move around the city. We started out in Orange Mound,
Okay.
right off of Pendleton in Lamar.
Okay.
And then we moved from there up to the Fraser area.
Okay.
We lived there for maybe 2 or 3 years of my life,
Uh-huh.
and then we moved down to the airport.
Who was in the household with you?
Oh man, I have a brother, an awesome brother,
Okay.
and a sister. My sister is the oldest, and then my brother, and then myself. There were the three of us.
You the baby?
I'm the baby, man.
Oh.
I'm the baby.
So
I'm
they say the baby's spoiled. Was you spoiled?
You know what? I must say that I was.
Oh, okay.
I must say that I
All right.
was. I have, again, an awesome support system
Okay.
outside of my immediate family,
Mm-hmm.
and then just in the community. People at the time that I was being raised, people took care of the young people.
All right, you brought it up. Great
Yes.
segue. Who outside of the household
Wow.
was made the biggest impact on young Major?
Wow, on young Major. On young Major, I would say that you said outside of the household.
Outside of the
Could that
household.
be a grandfather?
It could be.
Well, there you are.
Okay.
We had a very, very strong grandfather. He worked for the railroad, and he ran our family.
Oh, okay.
He was
Real
our
patriarch.
patriarch, and
Okay.
everybody, we went to him. I was able to sit back, watch my family come to him, ask for advice. He was very stern. He was the type of man of very few words, but what he said, he meant.
Right.
And he did it. He followed through with things. Everybody, the community had great respect for him. The family had great respect for him. And as far as me, I was able to sit back and watch that and learn from everybody else's experiences. A lot of people say, hey, what's the best way to learn?
Right.
It's not through bumping your head.
Okay.
It's actually through watching other people bump their heads through
So-
that experience factor.
In life, we always have those, what I call guideposts, outside of the family. Who was somebody that a young Major looked at and said, wait a minute, I like the way he moves. I like the way he does things. I think I want to kind of grow up and emulate some of those attributes. Who was that?
Wow, I appreciate that. Actually, that came at a little bit later in my age, a little bit later in my life.
Okay.
I mentored actually one of our chiefs with the Memphis Fire Department, and that chief was Michael Jubert.
Okay.
Michael Jubert was a very charismatic leader.
Right.
Laid back, easy to talk to, easy to come to with questions.
Okay.
One of the big things that I loved about going into his office was he had 2 pennies on his desk. And those 2 pennies, when you would go in with whatever the issue may be, he would bring those 2 pennies and he'd say, "Hey, would you like my 2 cents?" And he'd slide those 2 cents over there. And if you wanted to hear his 2 cents, then he was going to give you his honest advice. That advice.
I like that.
Oh, it was awesome.
I like that.
It
You
was
want
awesome.
my 2 cents?
You want my 2 cents? and that actually led me, through the ranks of the fire department. Watching him move, watching how he dealt with people,
Right.
his people skills,
Right.
because he was a very fair man, fair, consistent, very orderly. That was what I wanted. Now, I will tell you, you said don't go back to the family part, but again, with my mother and my grandfather, my brother, we're all public servants. I have an uncle who's no longer with us, my Uncle Mac. He was in the military, and so we have always been around order and discipline. And so each time that we were able to move into whatever positions, whatever roles, we were moving upward. It was upward mobility. My mom stayed in school. I remember as a kid, she was always in somebody's school doing something. Right. And so to watch that progression, to listen and observe and to maintain that order, because back in the day, when Mama said don't go outside, you stayed in the house. When Mom said don't get out of the yard, you stayed in the yard. And so it was an awesome opportunity to just grow from that and maintain that order and discipline. I got a lot of spankings when I challenged that.
I was going to ask you when you got the last one, but hold on, before you go there, I want to ask you this. Many young men are moving through life without a father. Where was Dad during this time?
Wow. My father was he was in and out. I did see him.
Okay.
I did see him, and he was always a very jovial person to me.
Okay.
I enjoyed seeing my dad come. As rare as it may have been, I still enjoyed it. And I'm actually named from him. His name is Major as well. I'm not a junior, but there's a lot to be said about a name.
Right.
And when I was always being told, "Hey, here comes Major," that sense, just knowing that name always just represented something happy for me. Right. So even though he wasn't the role model type of father, I still had a great respect for him. I still enjoyed being around him. And when he came, I was very pleased to see him.
How different are you from the person you dreamed you would be as a young man?
Wow. As a young man, I always knew that I would do something in the community.
Okay.
I always knew that I would be an impact.
Okay.
I thought that I would be rich by now. Because,
right.
At a young age, when I began to work, I would watch my mother. And my mother was very frugal with her money.
Right.
And she still is.
Right.
But I was going to use those opportunities, to use that mindset to actually grow my money, invest it in properties and just, different type of.
So you never wanted to be football player, basketball player?
I'm an
doctor?
athlete. Okay. I'm an athlete now. Don't get me wrong.
So you never dreamed of being being on the big screen or anything like that?
When I went to college.
Okay.
When I went to college for journalism.
Oh, really?
I was a journalism major.
Okay.
I wanted to be my boy Ernie Freeman.
Oh,
I wanted to be an anchor
Freeman.
man.
Yeah.
I wanted to be like that. That's what I wanted to do.
Oh,
and,
that's cool.
And as I moved through college, man, I started having fun. Went to the police department. Went to the police department for a little bit. Okay. And I asked my mom.
Hold on.
Okay.
I got one more question. Then we're gonna take a break and we're gonna move on to the other section.
Sure.
And we're gonna expand on all of these stories. But I gotta ask you, in all your travels, when was that moment when you looked at yourself and said, "Dang, I'm a black man"?
Wow.
Hold on before
That's
you
good.
give me an answer.
That's good.
Listen, we're going to be right back on the journey where Brother Major McNeil is going to share with us when he realized he was a brother. Stay right there. We'll be right back.
This is a journey.
Let me take you on a journey.
Success in life is not a straight line. There are twists and turns in everyone's life, and the more you know about their story, the more you'll understand the process. Kazuki Media Group proudly presents The Journey, a show that features successful black men in Memphis telling their stories of their lives and the ups and downs they've encountered on their ultimate road to success. We believe The Journey will encourage young men and help them see that life is a journey. Watch The Journey, hosted by me, Larry Robinson. Brought to you by the Kazuki Media Group in partnership with the Delta Boulay. Welcome back to The Journey. I'm your host, Larry Robinson, and today we have Brother Major McNeil, Battalion Chief, one of our great firefighters in the city of Memphis. Before we left, we asked you about when you realized you was a black man. But before you answer that, you're a black man, you're a battalion chief, you're a father, you're a grandfather. Who are you, Major McNeil?
Wow, that's good. I would say that that I'm a helpmate. I'm a servant.
Okay.
I would say that's what I am. And with every opportunity that I have, I want to impact someone else's life. I want to impact the way you think, the way that you feel, and I want to make you happy. I want to make people happy.
Where did that come from? Where did that come from?
Wow,
Major?
I've got to give it to my mother. I've got to give it to my mother because that's the way that we were raised. In our household, we were doing a lot of helping one another.
Really?
Through our community. It was always about helping one another.
You've got this love for the community and working with young people, leadership, all of that. That came from your mother?
I think it did. I
Really?
think it did, yes. Because, she loved me. And of course, at that time too, we went to church every
Where'd you go
Sunday.
Where'd you go to church?
Right. We went to a church called Barron Heights in Orange Mound.
Okay.
So Barron Heights, in fact, my grandfather's house, which is no longer there, was right next door to the church. So if we were always going to my grandfather's house, which was our common place to go, then every Sunday, it wasn't a question about it.
Right.
We were next door at the church. And so, we were a very religious family. God was always first. And I think sometimes we fail to really put that give it the credit that it's due.
Right.
Because we always want to say, well, my mom did this, my dad did that. But through God, man, all things are possible. And that's absolutely. What led our life and led the decision making. And we went to Bible studies, and so all the Bible studies, I know those. The kids nowadays, wow, they don't know the Bible stories like I used to know them. And it's a neat thing. But yes, the Bible stories, and I go back to my mother.
Were you one of those kids that could recite the order of the books of the Bible?
No.
Okay, I was about
No.
to say, see, my wife can do that. And that always amazed me because I can say Genesis.
Right. And stop there. Genesis and Revelations.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. That's it.
Those are the ones. Man. Wow. Yeah. But,
and guess what? The last book was called Revelation.
Yes.
You know, that type of thing. But nah, that's about it. But listen, so we before we went to break, we asked you, when did Major McNeil realize, what was that moment that you realized you were a black man?
That's a great question, and it's kind of a question that touches my heart because I told you we moved around through the city.
Right.
And so each time that we moved where the demographics were different as well.
Oh,
so
okay.
It started out with all people who looked like me, but then as we moved on, that started to change.
Right.
That started to change. And as I had white friends, friends of all types of races, people were very nice to you, out in public.
Right.
But there was one time that I was in a friend's home, and his father didn't know that I was there, and he used the N-word.
Really?
He used the N-word and was referring to me, and so I was like, wow. I knew I was a black man, but I didn't know that I was what he said.
Right.
And that was the moment that I realized, hey.
How did you deal with that Because I'm sure it was somewhat embarrassing.
It was. It was embarrassing. It was traumatic.
Yeah. How did you deal with that? What was your next way of dealing with that mentally?
Well, I stopped coming to the house. Because if that was what you thought of me,
Yeah.
then
Right.
I've really been jaded in my
What
whole.
did his son say?
His son was embarrassed. His
Okay.
son was embarrassed, and actually I went on and I had dinner with them because his dad never knew that I heard him say that word. His son knew, but his dad never knew. So I'm sure he told him later, and there was nothing ever really said about it again. But I just, for my piece, I just didn't come to his house like I used to because he was a very good friend of mine. He's one of my best friends.
Right.
But I just found myself not really wanting to share that space.
That's traumatic.
Yeah,
Talking
it
about
is.
traumatic.
And it made me think, well, if your dad thinks this way, then how do you really
Right.
feel about me?
Right.
But his dad came from a time that those thoughts and they were very prevalent.
Right.
And me and his son, we were good friends. We ran track together in high school, college,
Right.
and some more. And so we continued to be friends. But as we grew older, we created some distance from one another.
I got you. What's your superpower, Major?
My superpower?
Yeah. What's
Wow.
that thing? What's that thing that you can look at and say, well, I do this probably better than everybody else in the world.
Okay, I think that if I had a superpower, it would be reading minds.
Whoa.
Reading minds. I got you picked out.
Oh, yeah?
When I a couple of words, a little bit of conversation, I got you.
Really?
I got you. I'm a great judge of character.
Okay.
And I hold people accountable for themselves.
Right.
I don't mind letting you know how I feel. I try to be kind of somewhat conservative with my tone, but I think I'm a very good judge of character, and I don't mind creating distance. Love you from a distance. I'm real good at that.
Okay.
I can cut
Cut
you off
them
quick.
ties.
I can cut them off. I can cut them off.
Now, one thing I wanted to know, you talked about your grandfather and what he meant to you as a patriarch. When was that time that you looked at him and said, man, you get on my nerves? It's got to be a time.
My grandfather had a switch this long. so every time he used that
Yeah,
fine. That was what I was thinking.
When was
But-
the last time? What did you do and when was the last time that he
Wow.
pulled that switch out on you?
Man, I was maybe I want to say 10 years old when he passed away, actually.
Okay.
So I'm sure it was somewhere around those 10 years. But we did a lot. Back in that time, they didn't want you going inside and outside of the house. And so I probably, opened that door a couple times too many. And when I came through,
I had a couple of them words.
you had a couple of them?
couple of them.
And so that was probably what it was. But you always knew it. And then the way my grandfather showed his love for you is he would have you to brush his hair. He would have you to, he was a bald-headed man, but but he loved for people to, and most of the times it was the girls that did it.
Right.
But hey, he'll get the boys too. Come here, brush my hair. And heck, you would brush his hair and keep it going, or scratch his head with one of those little combs.
Right.
And he just, that was his way of showing love. And heck, it didn't matter, boy, girl, adult, child, baby. You were going to be doing that, and that was his love medicine, and I appreciated that.
Many times growing up, we have things about us that aren't very attractive. And sometimes we got things about us that's very attractive. What was that thing that Linda saw in you that said, boy, that got me?
Oh, wow. I really
Now, you've been married for how long?
yes, we've been married for 17 years. We've been together for 20.
Okay.
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 And so I think that that thing that got Linda most was communication, conversation. Conversation rules the nation.
Right.
And I think that after a conversation, a true conversation, she recognized my honesty, my straightforwardness, and my heart.
Right.
I'm very transparent,
Right.
very transparent. And in the conversations that we had, if she had issue, we lay it all out on the table. Hey, this is how I feel about this, and I listened. I listened to everything that she said, and as you see, when I leaned forward. That's the kind of listener I am, and I didn't interrupt her. And I listened to what she advised, or what she wanted me to hear, and then we sat back. I said, "Well, what do you think the answer is to this thing?" And I listened to what she thought the answer should be, and I would assess that, and then I'd give her my answer.
For the young men out there, what does that mean? Being an active listener. What does that?
Wow.
What benefit has that brought you with that skill? The skill of active listening.
Mm-hmm. People will tell you who they are. People will tell you who they are all the time. That's why I told you I can read people well, because they'll tell you. They'll tell you exactly if you're listening.
Right.
If you're listening and you're actively listening, they'll tell you exactly who they are. They tell you what they want if you're listening. And I've learned to gain from that. So back to that superpower, that component of listening, yes, that's where it is, and that's how you do it. And what you gain from that is you gain understanding.
Right.
You gain understanding.
Right.
Now, if I know what you want, my goal is to get you what you want.
Exactly.
Okay?
Exactly.
That's where I say I'm that servant. I want to get you what you want, because when you're happy, then I'm going to be happy.
Right.
There.
It's a couple things I want you to pay attention to that he's mentioned. Number one, active listening. Number two, being a servant leader. Mark those down in your notebook and hold on to that, because I think it's real important, especially for young men. I think understanding that there's a different kind of leadership. You ain't always got to be the guy shouting,
right,
cussing out everybody. You ain't got to be that. Or you want to be, people respect you more when you respect them.
That's right.
So your transition to adulthood, and we talked about Linda, but before that, where were you in life? You've always been in Memphis. You went to college. Where'd you go to school? And then how did you get into your professional career at this point?
Okay. Well, my mother's a police officer, or was. She's a retired police officer.
Really?
Yes. She retired with, I want to say 29 years with the Memphis Police Department. And so we lived, we lived that life. And it was a good life. The Memphis Police Department provided us with a very, very
Your
nice standard.
mother was a police.
Yes, Lieutenant Verdi McNeil. And
Okay.
she's a phenomenal lady.
What was it like having a mama with a gun?
It was what you think. It was what you think. My mother did not play. She did not play as loving.
Your mama
and
had
kind.
a real gun on
Yes,
the dresser.
she did. Yes, she did.
Wow.
Yes, she did. And she had a little nightstick. And I don't know if you remember them. If they may be outlawed now, but they had these little slapsticks.
Yeah, I remember the slapstick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I got to feel what that thing was all about. And I mean, when she did it, I was being a little mischievous, and I was like, "Mama, what are you gonna do with this thing?" And she's like, "Well, that's what I'm gonna do." And she popped me on my head with it, and then one of those old goose eggs,
one of the big hickey.
one of those popped up on my head, and she was like, "Oh my goodness!" But yeah.
Wow.
But and I will say this too. Back to that listening thing. My mother was a great listener as well. Is a great listener. She would always give you her directives, but when there was an issue, she would listen. Okay, and then she tear that butt up because you didn't listen.
Right.
And so it was good. It was really great, and I just continue to put that credit on her, because the listening, all of the components and things that you see in me, that it's a direct, effect of what I've learned from her and my family in general.
You mentioned that you're like your mom in this way. Which one of your kids is most like you?
Oh, I'm gonna tell you all of them. all of them, because the more that your kids are around you, they're gonna duplicate what they see.
Right.
They're gonna duplicate what they see, and my kids are so loving, and they're so smart. You don't realize how smart your kids are until you step back and you watch them, especially as adults. I have kids all over the world now. Actually,
Okay.
I have starting from my youngest, Chloe. She is in Bangkok teaching. I have a daughter. Yeah, she's teaching abroad. I have a son who's a social worker with one of our organizations in the city. I have my oldest son who's an operations manager at a warehouse, and then I have a daughter who's a dispatcher at 911. I have another daughter who's an entrepreneur, plus she's a social worker with I want to say Memphis City Schools, but she doesn't work with Memphis City Schools anymore. And then I have my daughter who's in Japan with her husband and family. And so they're all very, very wise, smart kids, and they listen. They listen. They didn't always listen to me, but
They listen
But
to
they
somebody.
listen. They listen. They listen.
Any regrets, man? Anything that you would like to, if you could rewind that thing called life and say,
Wow.
you know, I could do this over one time. I'd take a mulligan on this.
I would go back to investing in myself.
What do you mean by that?
I told you that I wanted to invest in properties and stocks and things of that nature. And those things were good, and I still promote those things. But I wish that at a younger age, I invested in myself, in my education, in my skills, just my writing skills, in my speaking skills, all of those things that they were telling you about in high school and as you moved into college. I wish that I had put more time into that, because had I done that, I think that I'd be a more effective person at a whole nother caliber. At this point, I feel I'm a good manager,
Right.
but I also feel that I could be a good executive. I think that I can run the city of Memphis.
Okay.
I feel that I can actually go and speak in the Senate. Those are the kind of things that I think I should be. And as far as not being able to obtain those things, and they're still on the platform,
Right, right.
But I think that had I invested more in myself during those younger years, then I would have probably had more focus so that I could step into some roles that I think that I should be in.
Talk to your younger self. Go back to Orange Mound.
Ooh, wow.
He's sitting there eating a bowl of cereal, watching his favorite cartoon. You walk in the door. What would you say to that kid, young Major?
Wow. I'm so glad you said that, because people say it all the time, but they never mean it. Son, you're going to be great. You are going to be great. And I think that our kids, sometimes you hear it and sometimes you don't. But me, if I were to walk back in that room, I would say, Major, you're going to be great. And if you stay focused and you stay consistent, son, you're going to do some amazing things in this world. I needed to hear that.
Right.
I needed to hear that.
I think a lot of us did. A lot of us did, and a lot of us do. So, this is the last one, Major. And I need you to speak right into that camera.
Okay.
And I want you to leave them with a Major McNeilism, something that they can carry from this conversation with them for the rest of their life.
Wow. The opportunity is there. The opportunity is there for you, and how you feel about life, it's gonna show. It's gonna show. And so take pride in yourself. Stay focused. Stay consistent. Follow your dreams. Life has some amazing things ahead, and you just have to go get it.
Listen, I couldn't have said it any better myself. We have Battalion Chief Major McNeil, who's dropped science on us today. I appreciate you.
Hey, man, I
really
appreciate
do.
it. I've had a blast.
Good. We're going to keep bringing them to you, so you keep coming back. I'm Larry Robinson for our guest, Major McNeil. This has been The Journey on the Kazukian Network. Till next time. Thank you to our partners, the Delta Boulay. To hear more incredible stories like this, be sure to download the Kazukian app from the App Store or Google Play. Or check out the Journey Memphis podcast on all your major podcast providers. Also, check us out on the Kazukian Network.